It's been almost a year since the National Anti-Corruption Commission, or NACC, started to operate.
I undertake to you, the people of the Commonwealth, that I will, to the best of my ability, fearlessly, fairly, and impartially discharge the duties of this office.
I wanted to take a look at what's happened since then. The NACC releases weekly updates, and one of the most recent ones gives us some interesting numbers. Since being established, the NACC has received over 3,000 referrals. Now, anyone can make a referral, even anonymously, and it's important to have an anti-corruption body set up this way. But it does mean that many of the referrals will need to be weeded out through a triage process. Out of all the referrals, almost 80% have been excluded after being triaged because they didn't involve Commonwealth officials or didn't raise corruption issues. That's a surprisingly large proportion of referrals. Then there's about 400 referrals that are either waiting to be triaged or currently being looked at further. 22 of these are under what's called preliminary investigation. When a referral is under preliminary investigation, it can mean that the NACC is using some of its powers to force information or documents to be provided, and this allows a determination to be made as to whether there's something worth investigating further. If there is a corruption issue uncovered, the NACC can then start a full investigation. Currently, there are 21 full corruption investigations ongoing. The NACC is keeping pretty quiet about these, other than one case which it has publicised, and in that case, someone has been arrested and criminally charged. This was someone who worked with Western Sydney Airport, which is a Commonwealth agency. They were said to have taken a $200,000 bribe to arrange a service contract, and they were arrested by the AFP in March 2024 and charged with soliciting a corrupt commission. This kind of case isn't surprising. When you think of an anti-corruption body, you think of the high-profile investigations involving politicians. But in reality, the number of politicians is tiny compared to the number of public servants more broadly. So it's much more likely that investigations are going to involve non-politicians. This is still important work, and is something you'll see if you look at the investigations of, say, the New South Wales NACC. It's just that no one really pays attention unless there's a politician involved. Now, this Western Sydney Airport case was the first time charges were laid in an investigation started by the NACC. I make that distinction because there are other cases that are further progressed, and that's because the NACC absorbed the investigations from the previous anti-corruption body that was called ACLI. ACLI was only focused on a small number of Commonwealth organisations, mainly law enforcement bodies like the AFP, Border Force or ATO. In these inherited investigations, there's been some more prosecutions and convictions. Back to just the NACC though, it seems there's also some final reports that we might expect to see sometime soon, although there's no guarantee that reports made by the Commission are released to the public. And there's not much else that we know. I'm not sure why the NACC chose to report weekly, given there's not much changing week to week, but if you are interested in checking out those updates, I'll put a link in the description. It's also been about a year since the Royal Commission into Robodebt made referrals to the NACC. I was finalising this video and the NACC released an update on this. They confirmed that they had received referrals from the Royal Commission against 6 public officials, but that they won't be taking any action. One of the reasons given was that they wanted to avoid oppression involved in subjecting individuals to repeated investigations, which is a nice consideration for the people who were involved in one of the largest unlawful schemes against the Australian population that we've ever seen. But anyway, back to why there's not much update from the NACC more generally. It might have something to do with how the NACC was set up. To be clear, it was great that Labor was able to finally put in place a proper federal anti-corruption body, and the model they went with was infinitely better than whatever joke model the coalition had previously proposed. But there were some last-minute tweaks that were concerning. If the NACC wants to hold public hearings, it has to reach a much higher threshold than, for example, the New South Wales NACC. This means that in practice, we probably won't see many hearings at all. And if there are corruption findings, these might not always be made public. I did a full video on this, doing a deep dive on the NACC model, and you can check that out if you're interested in finding out more. All of this means that the public is going to be in the dark about much of what happens at the NACC. And this isn't great when it comes to convincing us that the body is actually finding corruption, especially when a year has already almost gone by.